We all know the story. One day we arrive, and one day we must go. Everything that happens in between, like school, work, and relationships, we try to understand. But everything before we were born? And everything after we're gone? Nothing. If we don't know where we came from or where we're going, how can we be sure that what we're doing right now has any meaning at all? That uncertainty, that deep, unshakable unknown, has haunted humans ever since we could think. Some people run to religion, others to science. Some find meaning in love or purpose in art. But sometimes, those meanings fade, and what's left behind is silence, a blank space. That's where nihilism walks in. It doesn't promise comfort. It doesn't lie to you. It just says, there is no meaning. Nothing matters. And maybe you felt it, that sudden drop, like the ground gave out beneath your feet, like your whole life was built on something that isn't there anymore. But Nietzsche didn't see that as the end. He saw it as the beginning of something else. Nihilism. It sounds dramatic, maybe even dangerous, but at its core, it's a simple idea. There is no inherent meaning in anything. No divine plan. No universal truth. No absolute morality. Just existence. We're here, and that's it. For a lot of people, this realization creeps in slowly. It often begins with a question, a small three-lettered word that changes everything. Why? Why do I believe in this? Why do I follow these rules? Why does any of this matter? The more you ask, the more things unravel. Beliefs, goals, values, all the stuff that made your life feel solid suddenly feels like fog. You reach out to grab it, and there's nothing there. And if you keep asking long enough, eventually, you arrive at silence. No more answers. Just nothing. That's the moment where nihilism hits, a kind of philosophical vertigo. You're not sure what's real anymore, not sure what to hold on to. And it's scary, because we're not used to empty space. We want structure, meaning, stability. But for Nietzsche, that space wasn't a trap. It was a doorway, because when everything falls apart, you're finally free to stop asking why and start deciding how to live. So now you're standing in it, the void. No meaning, no answers, just silence. Most people turn away. They reach for something, anything, to make it stop. Religion, distraction, nostalgia. Because being here in this emptiness is uncomfortable. But Nietzsche didn't flinch. He stood in the silence. He looked straight into it. And what he saw wasn't death. It was freedom. Because when there's nothing telling you what to do, no grand purpose holding your hand, you are left with something terrifying and beautiful. Choice. No one's guiding your path anymore. You are. The meaning you once borrowed, you now have to create. The values you inherited, you now have to question. And if nothing is set in stone, then everything is up for reinvention. The void doesn't mean your life is over. It means the real work, the honest work, can finally begin. Because now, you're free to paint. Most people think nihilism means giving up. That if nothing matters, there's no point in doing anything. But Nietzsche disagreed. He saw two kinds of nihilism. Passive nihilism is the collapse. It's the moment you realize nothing means anything, and you just stop. Stop trying. Stop caring. You let go, but you don't replace what was lost. You float in the void, directionless. But then there's active nihilism, and that's something else entirely. Active nihilism is when you see the same emptiness, but instead of falling into it, you walk through it. It's the courage to look at the world, see that all the old answers are gone, and say, "Good, now I get to build my own." It's not destruction for the sake of chaos. It's destruction as preparation, clearing the ground to build something better. Nietzsche wrote, "To truly move forward, we must first question the entire logic of the old values." That's the work of the active nihilist, to burn down what's broken and not just sit in the ashes, but start creating. The void doesn't crush them, it frees them. Because once you've faced nothing and survived, you realize no one can tell you who to be anymore. So once you've stood in the void, once you've accepted that the old meanings are gone, what now? Nietzsche didn't leave us hanging. He knew we'd need more than just a blank slate. He offered a set of tools, not to explain life, but to help you build your own. Here's what he gave us. First, the will to power. This isn't about domination. It's about creation. The will to power is your drive to shape life. Not to follow, not to obey, but to form. To take who you are, what you've been through, and turn it into something only you can make. Second, eternal recurrence, a challenge. Imagine living this exact life again and again, forever. Every high, every heartbreak, every dull moment, on repeat. Would you say yes to that? If not, what needs to change? It's a test of integrity, a reminder to live in a way you wouldn't dread reliving. Third, the Übermensch. Not a superhero, a fully realized human, someone who doesn't inherit their values but creates them, who doesn't follow meaning, they make it. The Übermensch is who we become when we stop needing permission to exist on our own terms. Taken together, these tools are an invitation to stop drifting, to stop obeying, to build with clarity, courage, and responsibility. Because in Nietzsche's world, the person who walks out of the void is not a victim. They are an author. Freedom sounds beautiful until you feel how heavy it really is. Most of us grow up with a structure, beliefs handed down, rules already written. It feels safe, predictable, and then one day, it's gone. Or you step away, and suddenly, everything is on you. That's when freedom shifts from a dream to a burden. Because when no one tells you who to be, you have to decide. When there's no right or wrong waiting in a book, you have to define it. And that's scary. It's tempting to go back, to borrow meaning, to follow. But Nietzsche said that's not living, that's hiding. Real freedom begins when you take ownership, when you stop asking, "What should I do?" and start asking, "What do I choose to do?" fully aware of the cost. Think of someone walking away from a life others expected of them. Not because it was wrong, but because it wasn't true. They're not escaping responsibility. They're stepping into it. This kind of freedom isn't easy. It's full of trial, error, and discomfort. But it's also where real life begins. Because now, you're not reacting. You're choosing. Not blindly following a path, but creating one. And that, Nietzsche believed, is where meaning becomes real. So what happens when the old meanings fall apart? When everything you've believed starts to crumble? Most people panic. They call it a crisis. Nietzsche called it an opportunity. Because once the borrowed stories are gone, you're left with the most powerful thing of all: a blank page. You're not here to follow. You're here to create. Not to ask what life means, but to decide what your life will mean. Nietzsche didn't want us to drown in nothingness. He wanted us to rise from it. He said, "Tearing down your old house shouldn't make you homeless. It should give you the chance to build something better." And that's where you are now, standing in the quiet with a brush in your hand and an entire canvas ahead. It won't be easy. You'll doubt. You'll fail. You'll start over. But every brushstroke is yours. Because in the end, life doesn't hand you meaning. You give it meaning. So the question is no longer, why am I here? The real question is, now that no one's stopping you, what will you create?